eating healthy is so important, and it really makes a big difference in your life.
My name is Julie. I'm one of the dietitians here. Many of you know me. We have a couple of new faces, though, so welcome to the class.
Yes.
And this is Zoe. She's our fabulous chef. And our topic today is chili, which, as the weather is starting to cool off, will be a very nice thing to bring into your kitchen and into your diet this fall. Chilies, if you're making them yourself, absolutely can be a very healthy part of a diet. I would steer you away from any kind of pre-made, certainly canned versions. If you've ever checked the nutrition facts, it's a little scary. I've even seen some with trans fats right on the label. Not sure why that's in there. It's definitely not a necessary aspect. And they'll be very, very high in sodium. So the ones we're making today are lower in sodium than most. One of the recipes in particular is pretty good with the sodium content. But chilies are just full of flavor. So they're really packed with anything and everything you can think of. And that's the beauty of chili, is that you can kind of make it your own. If you have something on hand in the kitchen and you need to use it up, throw it in the chili. If there's a vegetable that you or your friend or family doesn't like, chop it up real fine and throw it in the chili, because odds are they won't taste it with all the other flavors that are in there. I want to highlight a few ingredients in chilies that you'll find pretty much across the board, and these are kind of the powerhouses of these meals. Number one in your handout you'll see are beans, and this handout was put together by my lovely intern, so you guys can thank her for that. Beans are kind of the best of both worlds. Lots of good fiber. So up to, depending on the type of bean, anywhere from 12 to 18 grams per cup, which is great. For women, we need 25 grams of fiber in a day. For men, up to 38 grams per day. But they also give you a good plant-based source of protein. Protein is extremely important for maintaining lean body mass, but we want to emphasize as much plant protein as we can. So beans are a really great way to do that. Good source of iron, good source of magnesium, some other good antioxidants in there as well. If you're using canned beans like we are here, always make sure you're rinsing them so you are getting rid of that extra sodium. That's an easy way to cut down. Next on the list are onions. Believe it or not a lot of people think of these as vegetables, but they're absolutely a vegetable. Very, very good for you. High in vitamin C, which is a good antioxidant. Also high in an antioxidant called quercetin. And I always like to say this, you've probably heard this already, but quercetin in onions is concentrated in the outer layers. So when you're peeling your onion, peel as little as you can get away with, otherwise you lose a lot of that really powerful antioxidant. Very anti-inflammatory, so you want to keep that. They're also good for reducing inflammation, good for reducing cholesterol. They add a lot of flavor to meals, so onions are great. And then garlic. Garlic is one of those foods that can add just tons of flavor without the extra sodium. We know that it's very good for your heart health, very anti-inflammatory. Fun fact about garlic is, I think our recipes call for minced or crushed. Garlic, when you crush it, you want to let it sit for at least a few minutes. That allows all of the compounds in the garlic to kind of mix and interact, and you get more of a benefit out of it that way than if you just cut it up real quick and throw it in there. So let your garlic rest a little bit before you use it. It's really important for lowering cholesterol even. So these meals, between the fiber from the beans and then the onions and the garlic, are really going to be good for your heart health and maintaining healthy lipid levels. Last thing on chilies, it's one of my favorite things to make because it makes a big batch. You'll notice we've got 2 big containers here, which means great for leftovers. You can freeze it. So if it's just you and you're thinking, how am I going to eat this whole thing of chili? Have no fear, you can freeze it, and then it's ready to go on a cold night when you don't feel like cooking. Pull it out, and it's ready in no time.
And it's good to freeze it. If you have a big leftover pot of chili, to separate by portions. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
you're gonna have to just take everything
All the
out.
whole thing.
Yes.
Very good point. Yeah, freeze
Yes.
it in individual portions so you'll get several meals out
Like
of
2
that.
cups if you're gonna share, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Or if you're just really hungry.
Yes.
But with that, I'm going to toss it over to Chef Zoe. If you guys have any nutrition questions throughout, please feel free to let me know.
Yes. Well, hi to the new people today. I hope you enjoy this class as much as we do, right? I'm Chef Zoe, and today we're going to have 2 amazing recipes: white chili, chicken chili, and the second one is going to be that I would say one of my favorite ones because it's vegetarian. So I'm more into the vegetarian kind of like eating habits now, And I think this is a great option for those that want to just keep it all veggies. And then beans provide a lot of protein and fiber as well, right? So
They
this is
do
a
give
great
you
recipe.
that protein source because you don't want to have a meal complete without a protein. So you've got to have that. And there's a lot of good research for cancer on more heavily plant-based diets. Does not have to be exclusively plant-based, but this is a good recipe to throw in the mix just to cut down a little bit on your animal protein intake.
And I have a question before I forget. When you were mentioning the garlic, what I usually do when I know that I'm gonna cook my garlic saute with the olive oil, I usually put olive oil in my garlic and let it sit for a minute. Instead of putting the oil and getting it burned and then adding the garlic, I think it won't lose the benefits, right? It's still gonna keep it okay.
Yeah, that's
it's
great.
not gonna make any changes, right?
No.
Because I usually do that, and it really helps for my garlic not to burn when I cook my garlic.
Yeah.
So it's a great tip at home if you want to do it.
If anything, you would lose more benefits from burning it and overdoing it in the pan. So if that's
So-
helping to prevent that, that's actually the better
Absolutely.
way.
And I usually like starting not necessarily with my garlic, but more like with my onions and peppers if that's the case, if I'm going to utilize those ingredients. That way I won't burn my garlic, and it kind of like incorporates in the middle of the cooking process. So I won't lose all the benefits. So today we will be presenting 2 recipes from Holly Clegg. Everybody knows who Holly Clegg is. She has amazing recipes, right?
She actually
great,
just
great recipes.
came out with her new version of her cancer cookbook,
Yes.
her updated version.
Yes.
So some really great resources in there.
Really good resources. And what I like about her recipes is that she would provide with a terrific tip on how to, change a little bit on the recipe. If you have cooked chicken versus raw chicken, she gives you a lot of tips on the recipes. And so this one right here just became one of my favorite ones because when I was making it, I was like, wow, this is a great recipe for chili, right? So we're going to go ahead and get started with the list of ingredients that we have. And I'm going to mention the ones that I didn't use just because I didn't have them in my kitchen. So same thing you can do, right? You're not going to stop making a recipe just because you don't have certain ingredients. You can always accommodate the recipe. So for this recipe, we are using 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breast, which we're going to cube them. For this recipe, it's going to make about 10 servings, which is 1 cup per person. And the nutrition information per serving reflects on the end of the recipe, which that's really important. If you eat more than 1 cup, then it's going to change completely.
Sure, if
right?
you have 2 cups, you've got to double everything that you
Yes.
see on there.
Did you feel that it's getting hot in there?
Yeah, a little bit.
Be careful. I forgot to tell
I'm
you
staying
this is
too
hot
close.
already. And so I want to tell you what I did. I had some leftover chicken breast at home, so I'm utilizing that. So that's going to speed up the process of the cooking, and you're not going to spend more time in the kitchen. So keep those things in mind, utilizing things that we already have that is not going to cost a lot of work to do a recipe. So I have the chicken that is already cooked, so it's not going to take 5 minutes to cook. It's ready to go into the pan with a little bit of olive oil. Salt and pepper, of course. Salt is always kind of like the thing that you add at the end and see if it really needs it, because it has a lot of good stuff in here that maybe you're not even going to need to add any salt, especially if you're utilizing something in the can, such as sauce or anything like that. We are using, I wanted to mention this really quick, 2 cups of salsa, which can be the green one or the red one, whichever you prefer. But if you don't want to buy can or sauce, I'm gonna tell you that the easiest way of making sauce is roasting your peppers, or you can cook them on the stove, on the pan. But you can do 1 cup of tomatoes. I like cherry tomatoes just because they're really nice and sweet, and kind of like it's gonna balance out the flavor of the spiciness if my peppers are too spicy. If you don't like spicy sauce, then go ahead and utilize green and red bell peppers. That's going to make a really nice sweet sauce. But if you like spicy, then you can go ahead and do peppers. And you can add as many peppers as you like depending on how spicy you want the sauce. For a really quick sauce, I usually do half of bell pepper, green one, half of red one, 1 cup of tomatoes, and I don't add any peppers, jalapenos or serranos if I think it's going to be too spicy. And 1 or 2 cloves of garlic, a little bit of salt, and that's it. This is a great sauce recipe, and it's actually the one that I'm using on the tasting that you're about to have in a
Okay,
minute, right?
great.
So that you can see the difference on the bottle sauce. And the next ingredients, we are using 4 cups of fat-free, low-sodium chicken broth, which you can utilize vegetable or chicken, whatever you have handy and at home. We also gonna do the peppers, chopped peppers in the can, about 4 ounces, right? But keep in mind fresh ingredients. If you have them handy, such as jalapenos or bell peppers, maybe you can utilize the other half of the bell pepper that you use for the sauce, right? Cumin and corn, oregano leaves. If you have, I have fresh oregano, so therefore I will go ahead and use something fresh instead of the dry one. But if you don't have it, then the dry one is great for this recipe. If you use the fresh one, make sure that you add the oregano at the end, almost like when you add the cilantro, just at the end, so that you can enhance the flavor, but don't kill the flavor completely of the oregano. For this recipe that you're about to try, I did not add any red kidney beans, only the navy beans, just because I didn't have enough of the navy beans, but I double up the amount. Instead of 1 15-ounce can, I did 2. So it's still gonna be okay, right?
Nutrition-wise, beans vary slightly on fiber and protein, but virtually the same. I mean, I would
Okay.
consider it the same. So, you know, if you prefer one type of bean over another, or if you have 2 cans of navy and no kidney beans, then absolutely use what you have. That's the nice thing about this is, in the end, you won't really be able to tell a difference.
Great. And so the last, the toppings, which is totally your option. I'm utilizing fat-free cheddar cheese, some sour cream, and some chives instead of red onions. When I looked at this recipe, this is a great recipe. But if you like to do, if you don't like sour cream, you can definitely do Greek yogurt, right? Same flavor, same texture is great for you as well.
Sure.
So you can do either one.
And I would actually go, I tend to prefer just regular cheese. It melts a little bit better just taste-wise. So if
Okay.
that's you, just do a little bit less, right?
Instead of the fat-free? Okay.
Or what do you think about like some diced avocado? I love avocado, so I feel like I
Oh,
would
we're
put
gonna
that.
add some as
Oh,
well.
good.
Yes, I got some here.
So there's
I don't
some
want to
extra
cut it
healthy
because I
fats.
want to show you guys how to cut it, and it's gonna look really beautiful on your soup or your chili. So yeah, we're gonna add some
Oh,
some
good.
good omega in there. So are we ready to start the cooking process of the chili? Yes.
We're
Okay.
ready.
Everybody say yes. Okay, so let me turn this up a little bit. So my sous chef is gonna help me. I have some oil that I'm gonna add on the pan.
All of this.
And
or
I
just
like
some?
to add the oil when it's not hot, because then I'm gonna burn my oil, right? Especially if you're doing olive oil.
And olive oil is when you do not want to do too high of heat. You'll really
Yes.
damage the healthy fats in there.
So a little more, just a little more, perfect. Okay, so remember that my chicken is already cooked. So if your chicken already had salt and pepper from the day before of cooking this, no need to add more salt and pepper, right? So we're gonna add the chicken.
And this recipe, if you look at the sodium content, it's 372 milligrams. May sound a little high. I would say for a meal, if we can keep it under about 500 milligrams, that's a good target to shoot for. For the whole day, now this is going to vary a little bit depending if you have any kind of heart conditions, high blood pressure, but in general, between 2,000 2,500 milligrams is a good target for sodium. So staying under that 500 milligrams per meal makes it a lot easier to stick to that.
That's great information. So I want to tell you that one of the tips that I do in my kitchen when I want my spices to be more intense in flavor, I usually cook my dry ingredients, which is the spices, before with the oil, and it really intensifies the flavor of the spices, such as the chili powder and the chipotle powder that we're going to utilize. Not for this one. For this one, we're going to have the cumin and the oregano. But since we have cooked chicken, I'm going to go ahead and add my spices so they can really marry with the chicken, right? And it's going to give the chicken really good flavor. Sometimes with the chicken breasts, it's so hard to get the really good flavor because it's so plain, right? But with cumin and oregano, I think this is going to be a great option.
Oh yeah, you can already smell the cumin
Right?
up here.
So as soon as all this spices touch the oil, it's going to become more intense in flavor, and it's going to smell wonderful in the kitchen, right? So that's looking really good. And then, so since my chicken is already ready, I'm going to go ahead and incorporate the other ingredients that I mentioned. This is my sauce. Smell how wonderful and fresh this smells. And it's
that smells
actually the
good.
combination of ingredients that I mentioned in the beginning.
If you've ever made homemade salsa, you will never go back to the pre-made
Yes.
salsa. It's
So I'm
so
adding
much better.
my sauce in here. And I didn't have my canned tomatoes, so therefore what I did, I chopped my tomatoes in advance so that I could get the juices in there. If you add a touch of salt, it's going to create a lot of moisture and bring all the moisture out of the tomatoes as well. But instead of the can, I just chopped one really juicy tomato, and I kept the seeds and everything and the juices. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and use instead of the canned one.
That sounds great.
Okay, so tomatoes go in there. And I kind of like it like this when I use fresh tomatoes, just because the textures, it's kind of like different layers of textures in there. The tomatoes are still bring that freshness of the ingredient, and so it keeps it really nice. And since it's such a heavy recipe, you want something fresh as well. So tomatoes go in there. This is high, really nice and high. So green chilies go in there as well. It smells wonderful.
Sure.
Now, let me tell you, if you are doing the bell peppers instead of the canned chili, diced chilies, then you would have to kind of like saute the peppers in the beginning instead of just adding them at this point, because you want them nice and soft. So maybe you're gonna start with the fresh ingredients in the beginning, even with the tomato and the bell peppers as well. So how easy is this?
It's just like a
Are you having
dump
fun?
and
Because
stir.
you just,
That's it. Doesn't get any better than that.
I know. So my broth goes in there. Four of them. Like I said, you can do chicken or you can do vegetable broth. Let's put some more. And what I do when I know that I'm going to utilize some chicken broth, when I cook my chicken breast, I add celery, some herbs, some carrots, and then I save it and I utilize it as a broth instead of buying from the can, low sodium, because I usually don't add any salt when I boil my chicken. So that's a great idea, right? Instead of getting canned stuff at the store. So corn goes in here. So when I was making this recipe, I always try to think about other ingredients that I can utilize. Right away, zucchini came to my mind, and also yellow squash. They're in season. They're great for you. Even when I tried this recipe at the end, as far as toppings, I would recommend that you do spinach. Fresh spinach, if you just chop it, you can add it on top, and it's incorporating something green and amazing as well. I usually do that with most of my soups that I eat. So I think spinach will be a great option. Even just a bunch of kale on top would be a great option.
Sure.
I make a soup kind of like this one. This is a chili, but you can add kale.
Kale
will
goes
be
great
good.
in soups, especially if you feel like you don't like kale, it's too bitter. In soups is a really good way to incorporate it, and these flavors will kind of mask that bitterness.
Absolutely. So maybe take some notes. Kale will be a great option, and the kale you can add it right now. The spinach, I leave it more like a topping at the end, but the kale, I usually add it so that it can cook a little bit and it won't be so, like you were saying, a little bitter. So how easy is this? If you have Chef Zoe at your house prepping all this stuff
She did
before
all
you
this
make
prep
it,
for you.
there's no need for you to wait, 30 minutes to make it? You can just toss everything like you did
Stir
just
and
now.
you're done.
So I really,
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can just go around to different people's.
right? So I was thinking you can really get really creative with chilies as well, kind of like with soups, because I was thinking right away chickpeas will be a great option as well, right? If you're making a white chili.
Sure, absolutely.
What other ingredients do you think that will go well with this? Julie, you have a lot of experience. You cook with me all the time.
I do.
Give me some ideas. Carrots, steamed
Sure,
carrots.
I mean,
Anything you
I
can.
really do use chili as a way to kind of sneak in extra. So I've even done like mushrooms that I've cut up real fine or celery that I've cut up real fine.
Yes.
Things that I have on hand that need to be used up.
Yes. And then, so this, the chili, we're going to bring it to a boil because that's when all the ingredients are going to kind of like make sense. And that's when you know if it needs a little bit of salt. Keep in mind, though, the toppings. You're going to add more sodium if you're utilizing cheese and maybe some sour cream. So you still have to be really careful not to make it too salty because you incorporate in other stuff at the end. I decided to do chives just because we were talking about this before the class, right? It's such an amazing herb to add to the soups, and it looks beautiful, and it's really intense in flavor. You still get the onion flavor in there, but in a more delicate way, right?
Sure.
So I really like green onions. It's an herb. You can do cilantro, you can do parsley, but I think these 3 ingredients here will make a lot of sense. And another thing that we talked about before the class is that quinoa will be a great option as well if you want to add some protein in there, right?
Sure. If you're trying to, I mean, this one has the chicken in there, but if you're trying to incorporate more whole grains into your diet, quinoa would be a great one.
Quinoa would be really good, right? I love quinoa in the mornings though with my instead of eating oatmeal, I do my quinoa. If you cannot get used to just the quinoa, you can do a combination of maybe both, right?
Yes.
So I really, really like it. I put cinnamon. I put almond milk or coconut milk if I have. I put fresh blueberries, whatever fruits I have handy, and it's a great. It makes me feel full for the rest of the morning because when I have like crazy days, recording days, I know that I need a good breakfast, and that provides the protein that I need, the fiber, all this good stuff that my body needs.
Well, and what
So
I
this
hear
is
from most people is that they don't like quinoa. They think it's too bland or they don't know how to use it. And by itself, if you just try to eat some quinoa, it will be pretty bland. You've got to put it into a salad or do it as a hot cereal or mix it in with a chili. And then it kind of takes on the flavors of what it's with, but you still get the nutrition benefit from it. So if you've tried it once and you think you don't like it, try it again just in a different way.
That sounds really good. And I was thinking too, if you like your chili really heavy, try to maybe put half of the amount of the beans in the blender or the food processor and make a really nice paste and add it to the chili. So that's going to make it really nice and thick. Instead of adding flours or cornstarch, maybe you can do that. And right when we put the beans, we let it cook for 5 to 10 minutes, and I think it's going to be ready to just try. So keep in mind ingredients that are in season, such as squash, butternut squash, pumpkin. I love pumpkin. It makes me feel happy. It makes me feel like it's fall, which it is.
It is. It's
Yes.
almost doesn't seem like it. But yeah, on the beans, if you have any kind of digestive issues, digestive concerns, whether it's gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, you may need to make some modifications. So if for you, if beans are really tough to digest and maybe are too gas producing or really cause some stomach pain, then blending some of them up would actually, it's really, really sizzling now, would make it a little bit easier for your body to digest it. You may also consider leaving out the corn, which can be tough for a lot of people to digest, and doing some of those other vegetables, doing the squash and the zucchini where you can still get color from those, but they're going to be much easier to digest.
I've heard that bay leaves are really great when you're baking something with beans. It really helps you digest. I don't know if that's a good, true or not, but when I was in culinary school, one of my instructors told me that when we bake beans, it's a good idea to add bay leaf to the beans. So maybe you want to try that.
Sure. I always wondered what the bay leaves were for when they called for 2 bay leaves in, in their recipe.
It's good for roast. It's good for soup, right? So bubbling, that's what we're looking for. And then you turn the heat down, and then you let it cook really nice and slow until you get the right texture. But this looks pretty ready to me. And remember, if you want it nice and thick, just keep in mind what I mentioned. You blend half the amount of the beans, and you make a really nice paste. That will be a great option. I brought my beautiful plate from home because presentation is everything, right? So at this point, I'm going to put my soup here because I'm going to dress it up. This is almost like when you have dinner and you have to get nice and put your nice dress on.
Make it look fancy.
We're doing the same with the soup. So I'm going to cut my avocado. And so keep in mind if you're making guacamole, so therefore you need to pick a really nice soft avocado. But if you're utilizing the avocado as a topping and you want really nice diced avocado, so then get the really nice and firm ones. Not too firm, but firm enough that you can dice them. So what I do with mine, I cut one end of the avocado, and then I go half. One side is always going to be bigger than the other one, as you can see, right? So I get a bigger knife, and then I get
That's the
my
part that
seed
makes me
out.
nervous.
So if you're going to do that, Julie, remember,
Oh.
keep something like this. Don't ever just do this. I did this just because I
'Cause you're
grew
a
up
pro.
doing this.
Yeah.
So, no, and I grew up doing this. If not, I think I will be scared as well. But just put something that you can cover your hand with. Even those cutting gloves are really great to have at home, right? So I cut the end of the tip of the avocado because this is going to give me a much better way of peeling the avocado without making a big mess, right? So you just get the skin. And when it's nice and firm, of course, it's going to help you in so many different ways to get a really nice avocado instead of getting your hands really dirty. So what I usually do, I cut right in the middle with my knife because I want nice, almost the same size dices. If not, it's going to be more like triangles instead of dice. So what you want to do is you just want to cut long ways and then like this, and you end up with really nice diced avocado, right? For such an amazing soup and beautiful, you don't want to add avocado looking more like, I don't know, like what, Julie?
Like a big old glob.
Yes,
or mess.
yes.
Yeah.
So you get some really nice dice, and just take your time. It's okay because presentation is everything. So I have my avocado. If I'm not going to use it right away, let's say that you're making this for the family on a Sunday brunch, make sure you put it on a bowl and add some lemon juice and keep it with lemon juice or lime. We know this, right? And then another thing, I usually keep my seed and put it in the middle just so that it can kind of like keep it fresh. So I have my avocado. Man, I used to love it when I was little. It was just one of my favorite snacks. Isn't it crazy? As you know, as little kids, you don't think that this would be a good snack. But I put a lot of lime juice, a little bit of salt, and with the spoon, I would eat it.
Just
I
eat
wouldn't
it,
even mess
yep.
around with my mom that I was hungry. I'm like, there's avocado. This is a great thing for me. I would just sit in front of the TV, watch cartoons, and have half an avocado. I think is a great snack.
Wow, if kids
I
these
was kinda
days
like
did
a
that, we
crazy
would
child,
be so
right?
much healthier.
Yeah, right?
That's amazing.
I really love avocado when I was little. So we put some avocado. And what I like to do, I like to put some here, right? And then I got my cheese. I'm going to put some on the other side. And of course, the chives you leave it for the almost the end. This is going to go right in the middle. You don't need a lot. And of course, the chives are going to go all over the soup. It's going to look really nice.
If I didn't know any better, I'd almost think this looked like a tortilla soup with kind of the
Right?
toppings. It's just a
Exactly.
different, fun spin on chili.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And then for this, if you have like powdered chili powder or whatever, you can just add a little bit on top. This recipe doesn't call for that, but it's going to make it look really nice, right? For someone that likes spicy, go ahead and put a pepper on top. And they can just kind of like cut it with the spoon. And that
Wow.
this is such a nice, it smells so good. You can dice up some tomatoes, add some fresh tomatoes on top if you like, the spinach that I mentioned, some cilantro. But I think this is a great way of eating healthier, incorporating a lot of veggies into your chilies, right? So chili doesn't have to be something too heavy and greasy. You can accommodate it to whatever your needs are. Like if you
Yep.
like veggies, incorporate a lot of veggies.
Yeah,
right?
unfortunately with chili, we associate it with just really heavy on the meat. And it's
Yes.
a lot of just red meat, which is one we want to limit a little more anyway. And maybe a few beans thrown in there and maybe not too many vegetables at all. So this is just a kind of flip-flopping that lighter on the animal protein, much more
Yes.
heavy on the vegetables.
And I was gonna mention when I cut my chives, I usually put my like a nice wet, not too wet, uh, paper towel, and I kind of like fold it like this. And if I'm only gonna use this amount, then I kind of like put my paper towel depending on how much I want, or I can bring it down if I'm gonna cut for everybody. Kind of cut it like this, so it kind of helps me keep them in place. Because let me tell you that chives are kind of like the happiest onion in the kitchen. You know that. You know that, right? You know why, right? No? Y'all don't know why?
They don't make you cry.
Because what this one doesn't make you cry. This one jumps all over the place.
Oh, okay.
So if you kind of like, so
Dance.
this will give you kind of like dance all over it. See how one just jumped? So they like to dance, and it's pretty much a happy onion, right? I call it my happy onions. Do I have happy onions? Because they jump everywhere, so you make big mess. So if you do this, you're gonna have a better way of keeping the onions inside and not all over the place, right? Man, it smells so good. This onion is so strong. Can you smell it? Okay, so are we ready to see the other recipe? Is there any questions before we go to the next one? The next one is gonna be the sweet potato, right? When I was making the sweet potato, I was thinking right away butternut squash. So think about those ingredients that you might have already. They're in season, and but sweet potatoes are so good, aren't they?
They're pretty
I mean,
versatile
and
too.
it's so
You can use them for a
inexpensive.
variety of ways.
Yes. So I'm gonna put my sweet potatoes over here. This again, I put in the oven a bunch of sweet potatoes, and I end up with something that is left over. So it's gonna save you some time in the cooking process. You don't have to sit there and wait until it's cooked. So if you roast them or you put them in the oven, keep in mind the flavor is gonna be really nice and sweet because you're caramelizing the sweet potatoes. So you're gonna end up with a sweeter product at the end. So keep those things in mind. If you like kind of like sweet and savory, this is a great way to do that by roasting your sweet potatoes. Okay, so onions, garlic, which is so good for you, right? Okay.
Very good for you.
Some red bell peppers. Red bell peppers are a great option for this recipe. However, you can do green, you can do yellow, you can do orange, you can do a combination. It's going to be amazing. I always talk about the fact that you can incorporate the three, the yellow, the green, the red, and it's really going to, benefits are almost the same, but not really, right?
A few differences. So I was actually researching this for another demonstration that we did and learned myself that the red bell peppers are a little higher in vitamin C than some of the other colors. So that's one thing to keep in mind. For those of you who have indigestion or any kind of like reflux or any stomach issues, the green ones are a little bit harder on your stomach and more likely to exacerbate those symptoms. So you may go for more of the red or the orange or the yellow that are more mild. So there's a couple of reasons to pick one color over another, but mostly they're all very good for you.
I think the yellow ones are kind of like my favorite ones. They look beautiful. The yellow ones and the orange ones. They look beautiful, and they add this sweetness that is just indescribable. I really like those two.
They do seem to be a little bit sweeter if you're going for that flavor.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the second one. And again, if you want to make a note, butternut squash would be a great option for this recipe. Combination of butternut squash with with zucchini, with yellow squash, that will be great as well.
And
So
one thing on, oh, sorry to
No,
jump
go
in.
ahead, go ahead.
One thing on the butternut squash, I'm always kind of deterred from it because I have to try to figure out how to cut that thing and what to do with it. You can, to make it easier on yourself, find in the stores already pre-cubed, ready to go butternut squash that then you could roast in the oven, and the hard part's already done for you. So if you can utilize some of those tools that they already have done the work for you, it makes it a lot easier, especially if you're tired, not feeling well. So I would go that route myself.
Or you can put them in the microwave for like seconds or maybe 1 minute and make sure that, or even more than that. And it's going to get the skin, the outer skin, it's going to get it nice and soft, so where you can cut it much easier. But keep in mind that the knives are really important when you're cutting something like that. A sharp knife will be what you want, right?
Sure, and safer.
Yes. And cutting, let's say, because you were asking that earlier, right? Cutting a little bit of the end like this so you can have a firm stable like that instead of like this one. The shape is pretty crazy, right? So yeah, you can just do this. And you have to use your force. I don't know why I'm demonstrating this, but well, I'm going to go ahead and do it since I started, right? You can just use your hand like this, woo, and you end up with something like this. So what I like to do, if I don't want to dice a butternut squash, let's pretend this is a butternut squash. I put a little bit of olive oil, put them on the sheet pan and put them side down, right? And then I kind of like just take all this, the scoop, and I use it a lot for pastas, for my enchiladas I was telling you about. So that's a great way if you don't want to dice it. But let's pretend this is a butternut squash. Man, that made me sweat. Okay.
It takes some,
right?
it's like some exercise in the
my
kitchen.
face got like I'm burning up. Okay, so I cut it like this. There's so many different ways, but this is, I find, is the best way. And I'm pretending this is a butternut squash, right? So you want to, whenever you do the butternut squash, though, let's pretend this is a whole butternut squash. You don't want to cut it long way unless, you have a good knife. When you're going to peel the butternut squash before, instead of putting it in the oven, you cut it right in the middle, right? So you can have this side like this, small enough that you can utilize a knife and just peel it like this, right? And it looks easy, but I guess whenever you making how many, like 20 of them, it becomes more complicated, right? So you cut it like this, depending on how big you want the dice, to dice it. And
I think that's my problem. I've always tried to cut long ways.
So
that makes more sense.
See how beautiful this, the dices are pretty nice and small, but make sure that you don't cut it long ways. You cut it right in the middle like this. And then, of course, you have to cut the ends, right? And then at this point, that's when you kind of like start peeling everything. And that's going to give you a much better way, to cut it. So let me put this aside. And then we can cook this later. Well, let me move this over here. And that feels pretty hot already.
Yep, it is warm.
Okay, so oil goes in here. And so, Julie, you want to move so you won't get burned?
Yep, I'm gonna stand back.
Okay, so onions go in there because if I put my garlic, it's hot and it's gonna burn my garlic.
Onions can handle it.
Yes, onions can handle it. Okay, so bell peppers. You want to get the same spatula or you want a new one? So for this one, I'm using kidney beans, right? And kidney comes just from, they said it's almost like the shape of our kidneys, right? Which I'd rather not describe it that way. I'd rather describe it as it's just kidney because, I don't know, it's good for you.
It is very good for you, yeah. Don't let the name deter you.
So garlic goes in here. Okay. Whoa, that smells wonderful, doesn't it? Okay, Julie, what's next in the recipe?
So you've got garlic, we've got some seasonings.
Okay. For the seasonings, I'm going to go ahead and add
chili powder and
chili
some
powder.
chili powder.
And chipotle. Okay. Smelling really nice. It is really incorporated so well with the onions, the garlic, and the peppers, so it's gonna make it really nice and intense in flavor, right? So what's next?
Next,
we're gonna add some
sweet tomatoes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and add our sweet potatoes. Right away, you can smell how wonderful it smells, right? So this is the reason why I'm doing this, and I'm asking you to tell me what's next and mix it and stir it and everything is because this is going to make it so much easier for you to make it at home because you're going to remember exactly what happened here in the kitchen.
I won't have to pull out the
yes.
seasoning recipe.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing to keep in mind on this recipe, it is vegetarian, so we're still getting some good protein from the beans. If you have issues with blood sugar, let's say you have diabetes and you're trying to keep your carbs in check, this recipe comes out a little bit higher in carbohydrates because it has the sweet potatoes, it has beans, it has the couscous. So for one serving, 1 cup, it's 61 grams of carbohydrates. That's the max we would want you to have at a meal. So you would not want to have anything else with carbohydrates, like some kind of roll or cornbread or anything else with this. You might have a salad on the side that's going to give you lots of good vegetables but very minimal carbohydrates, just to make sure you're not overdoing it on the carbohydrates.
Well,
they're all very good carbohydrates, complex carbs. They're going to break down more slowly in your bloodstream, but still we want to keep that total in mind.
Well,
This
that
does
was
look
quick,
good.
huh?
Yeah.
So I have my couscous here, and we're talking about couscous, how it's the pasta. So I'm using the pearl ones, right? Instead of the ones that are more like smaller, right? Or smaller pasta, just because we didn't have the other one in the kitchen, and you have to utilize what's available. Same benefits, right? Just different sizes. So I like this one. It looks really nice. If you're all about texture, then some people don't like this ones just because they're like kind of like a little bigger, or just just the texture and the shape of this they don't really like. But I think they're wonderful and they look really beautiful. So I'm gonna put them here, and well, that looks really nice. So remember when I said that my sweet potato was already fully cooked because I had some roasted left over. So therefore, this is not gonna take too long to cook. This is gonna be ready almost immediately. Just the only reason you wanna bring it to a boil is to incorporate all the flavors really, really well, and that's it. And that looks pretty ready to me.
Looks
Let me
great.
go ahead and serve it. As long as the onions are cooked completely, I think that's exactly what you're looking for on this recipe, and the peppers, because that's the only thing that it was pretty much raw when we added into the pan. So I will tell you though that whenever you try this one, to be really careful, because if you don't eat spicy, it is spicy. I really try not to make it spicy. I follow the recipe, but it just the chipotle adds that spiciness that that really makes you kind of like, I need some water, some water with ice. So for this one, you can just leave it plain. It's amazing, or you can also do a little bit of something green. Will look beautiful, right? So green. Even I have my chives here. We can just cut one and just put it on top, and it's gonna make it look so beautiful, right? Again, you can get a little bit of chili powder and then add a little bit. And this is just pretty much ready for everybody to enjoy. Avocado will be a great option if you like. It's just a matter of what you really like or what you have available at home. But I think these two recipes are amazing. I was pretty happy when I made them, and I tried them, and I'm like, again, Holly Clegg did so awesome with these recipes. Easy to make. And then what's so amazing about both recipes is that you can change so many ingredients without hurting the benefits of the recipe, because incorporating more veggies, if you don't have sweet potatoes, but you want to use butternut squash, benefits are amazing. So utilizing either one is going to be still great for you, right?
Yep, absolutely. The vegetables have to be there. If you need more protein or want to include more animal protein, certainly you can do that with either of these. Make sure you're choosing lean options, right? Whether it's the ground beef. I hear a lot of people doing turkey chili, and we assume automatically that turkey is leaner than ground beef, and when it comes to ground turkey, it's not necessarily the case. So still look for a very lean variety. I mean, there's even recipes with ground chicken. Just make sure you're choosing the highest quality animal protein that you can.
I know it's going to sound crazy, but I make a lot of my soups and most of my dishes with tofu. So if you want something super high in protein, but you don't like beans, can I use tofu?
Sure, you
instead?
could.
Okay.
And that may, depending on your personal, health history, if you're needing to avoid soy or tofu, then I would say no. do more of the plant-based, but absolutely. If not,
Yeah.
tofu is a great plant-based source of protein.
Because I'm not big on beans, but I do love chickpeas
Mm-hmm.
and lentejas. Some what do you call them? Yeah, lentejas.
Lentils?
Lentils.
Lentils,
I
okay.
don't know why I'm saying lentejas. Lentils. Either one will be great for this recipe. Even for the one with the couscous, right?
Mhm.
That will be a great source of fiber
Oh,
as well.
sure, sure.
So I think I would do that instead, just because I'm not big on beans, period. But these two recipes are really, really good, and I cannot wait for you to try them.